Okay, well, a very good morning to you, Ratna.
Good morning, Claudia.
Delightful for me to introduce you today to our first call that we've arranged to talk about personal transformation and organizational transformation, what the two do together and how important they are at this crucial time that we're all facing in the world with all these enormous changes. So I'd like to introduce you as Ratna, and please, could you say your surname in the proper way for me?
Of course, Claudia. Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me to do this with you. Yeah, my name's Ratna Morjaria, and I recently just set up my own organization called Dharma Awakenings, and it's really about transformation from the inside out. So I think that's really appropriate for what we're going to talk about today, Claudia.
Exactly, and it's just such an honor to have that talk with you. Of course, we've met each other through various ways, various means. We work together through a transformational journey as well.
Mm.
And I am Claudia van Zuiden, and also a transformational coach and the founder of Solution Ways and co-founder of Conscious World Agents. And I really believe in unlocking the potential in people and organizations and teams. And what I've noticed that, and that's why I contacted you as well, because that's one of your expertises as well, this culture change and how to go about with that. And I've also worked with that internationally all over the world, and I thought, well, the right person to have a dialogue around is you. And then when I started mentioning to people, they were like, oh yeah, I really want to hear you to talk about this, because
Oh, great.
probably because they see maybe we have a different approach,
Mhm.
and that we realize that organizational transformation starts with personal transformation.
Yes, I totally agree on that one.
So, so if we want to see organizational change, then we need to, I believe, become a role model. The role model, so people in the organization think, wow, I like what that person is doing. And that has like a domino effect, often. And then if we look at the science aspect of this, like with mirror neurons, that we copy each other and so forth, these people will be our inspirators, our role models that we think, wow, so this is also how we can go about with change. This is also how we can go about making a connection with people. So what I would like to suggest today, and I think, people will realize that we've already discussed this a little bit beforehand, how do we feel from probably also a female perspective, having lived and worked in the corporate world both for a very long time,
Yes.
seeing that, of course it has its advantages, to approach things from a masculine perspective. And then I'm not talking about male perspective, but a masculine perspective, the doing, the focusing, very hard, working towards goals and support, the active part also. But I'm also looking more in the qualities that I think you and I both embody and what we bring to our training and support, and when we speak about things like this, there's also this feminine aspect, this nurturing, this growth into something in your potential, but then with the nurturing and the supportive aspect in the back, and looking at how that is possible. What do you need to thrive? And when we then see people flourishing on a personal level, we see also that the team or the organization thrives more. It has this effect on one another. So, and I think people and organizations are waking up to this, that they're saying, well, it's not about 24/7 work anymore. I mean, we both work with people who have had burnout and all that, just because of this idea that if I work hard, then things are going to be great. We don't see our limitations, our pitfalls, and so forth. We don't recognize them anymore, and we don't dare holding a mirror in front of each other anymore. So this discussion or dialogue would rather be about how does personal transformation support the organizational transformation. So I'm very, very keen to hear how you see that right now, please.
Yeah, such a big topic, really a big topic. So let's see where we go with it about the female aspect as well. And one thing I'd like to sort of really say on that, you know, we talk about equality a lot, but equality is, for me, is not having a dominance of male or female. It's about respecting the male and female attributes that come into play when we're in an organization. And I think sadly over the years, because of how fast organizations have grown and gone on profit and wanting to put structures into place, whether that's from an accounting point of view, whether that's from a management system point of view, we've just been driven by achieving KPIs. And I think that really becomes dominant from a male perspective. And if we go back in history, that's because, you know, they're the hunter-gatherers that need to provide for their family. So they need to know, what's my target as well. And I think we've been caught in that trap of what's the target and we have to achieve this, because if we don't, there are consequences, but not really studying why we didn't achieve this. Because we then end up creating a blame culture, which brings all those attributes and characteristics of aggression and blame, not having the ability to do active listening as well. And I think that's the part now which is becoming more prominent, whether it's male or female as well, to have the active listening. You know, I worked for a company for 27 years. And if I look back now, people always say to me, you know, have you always done changing culture? And I never thought of that. I thought the last few years I've been changing culture, but I've really been reflecting on it. And if I look where I started on a small production plant, and it was a greenfield site where we had to build a culture to get to know the people, to bring new products onto the site, to create a team, to create a management team of values. And we were all unknown people to each other brought together. And it only struck me after I left the company that, oh my gosh, I've been creating culture since the day I started as well. And at the tender age of 25, I didn't think I had that many skills as we would put into the skills values of what we put in an organizational structure. What I had the skills of, Claudia, was who I was as a person. And how do I help the company achieve something that's bigger? But also, how do I motivate, inspire, and look? And I think the key word is, how do I look after the people to help me get where I need to get to, but also make them part of the journey? Because without their value of what they bring to the team, it doesn't add any value to the bigger picture. Yeah. So I think, you know, and I have to really say, honestly, you know, I know there's a lot of talk about women are not treated fairly in the pay, in how they're seen. And I really appreciate that there are many women who get treated like that. But I also want to tell a different story. I have never had that experience, to be honest. I've been very fortunate with all the male colleagues that I've reported to. However, I now say that I'm fortunate because of what I believe in, what I'm able to. I think you asked about the qualities, you know, the female qualities that all of us have. What does that bring? I think a lot of that is actually reading the room, Claudia. You know, sitting back and watching what's going on around you before we answer a question, before we react to something. Don't get me wrong, I'm not perfect every time, but I think the female attribute is really looking at listening to the air, watching people's behaviors. And I think women naturally have that to a great extent, because if we look at, you know, when we're younger, we have that nurturing, we're looking after people. We have children, they can't talk to us. We have to watch what they're doing. We have to try and understand the language that we are no longer familiar with also. So you have those inbuilt skills, and you don't have them from day one. You grow with those nurturing skills, and you grow and you learn to try and understand. If someone's talking to me and I can't understand them, how do I read in the air? What do I read from the body language? And I think that's a big part that's missing in the work environment, because we're just driven by the goals that we need to achieve, not how we're going to get there as well. And so many misunderstandings and frustrations happen because of that. And that's a lot of wastage of time, Claudia, in an organization. Whereas if we created an environment where we teach people how to read the air, why do especially in global organizations, why do people behave differently? It's not about the culture of the company, far from it. It's actually to do with who they are before they walk through the door of the organization. Not just the country they come from, the families they come from, the environment they've been in. It's so complex, you know? And if we went back and just said to people, do you actually understand culture is more than someone working from the company? It's X, Y, and Z, like I just described. I think just doing that, we could actually help organizations change the way they look at the people that work for them.
Yeah, I really love that. And I also like the metaphor that you use, like being a mother, but also seeing like in the old age, the days where we were still hunter-gatherers. Yes, indeed, often the man would go out hunting and the women would stay behind looking after the family, the children, and that way. And they also worked, they made the clothes and they cut the herbs and cooked and all that. And they went locally to get what they needed to prepare all these things. And because of that, they also had the opportunity, of course, to take time and listen, and by listening, observing what was happening around them, and seeing the different characters. And how often is it not, when we have children, as a parent, we know how to adapt to the needs of one child because they're different than the other ones, because we see what they need. And I think that's what is also, of course, apparent in organizations.
I just want to, sorry, I'm just going to jump in there. I love what you just said about the hunter-gatherers and the women being able to do things at home. But just on that point, Claudia, yes, there's the hunter-gatherer aspect, but the organizational aspect for the hunter-gatherers to know what they need actually needs some organization and communication. And so we've always been working together, but I think sometimes by making the topic about equality and diversity, we forget, really, if we go back to that simple point, the hunter-gatherer can only go and hunt and gather if they've been given instructions, and instructions with good communication, because they have to come back with the things that they're meant to come back with. Otherwise, the meal won't be made, right?
And I think that's that circular way of living. And
yes,
what we've seen, of course, after the Industrial Revolution, of course, we became indeed very profit-driven, very success-driven, and goal-oriented. So that meant that we lost that wholeness of it.
Yes.
I think what I noticed, and I think this is something that I really like that you brought up as well. You've experienced this way of feeling supported, and you didn't feel that you had you weren't equal, I suppose, in the workplace and so forth. But what I also would like to say is that for a lot of what I hear from the male point of view is that they're also saying, well, I don't know what to do, because in a way I feel that I need to be goal oriented, and I want to provide because I'm active, and just because of all the things that are happening in my body. That's what I do, but I don't feel it's allowed, because then I'm a bit lost. So it's also knowing how to express as women. Then, and I really don't want to go into the male female, but more in the masculine and the feminine aspect, the more subtle qualities
Yes.
we all inherently have.
Yeah.
Therefore, they haven't listened or learned to develop because of maybe how they were brought up, or at school it was not promoted or supported in that way. You know, it was all very much about developing the IQ,
Yes.
not very much about developing the EQ, the emotional intelligence. So,
Yes.
of course, we need the head, and of course, we need to be practical, like you say. But how do we develop from the heart? And I think that's what's been lacking, and
Yes.
that softer side, let's say, or soft skills that are actually, I believe, are hard skills.
Yes. I agree.
Those three ages, it's like the head, the heart, and the hand. So then it becomes the action. What can I do for you to help you?
Correct.
To feel comfortable and support,
Yeah.
and to feel supported, and that you can thrive in the organization.
Yeah.
That I feel we see happening more. And how to do that is indeed learning skills like active listening, asking the right questions, finding out what people need to thrive, and then put yourself in the back burner. Because if you can put yourself as a leader at the back burner, you know, and say, and but listening and just making sure that people feel heard, then what can happen? They feel more energized, they feel the vital energy is more, the productivity is much higher in the organization. But you as a leader will need to become aware of that, this personal transformation. Like, am I actually a good listener? How can I improve this? So yeah, that's what I then believe is if you personally take those steps as a leader or as a person in general, whether you have a team or not, or you have you're a solopreneur or I don't know. If you develop these and you become aware of your pitfalls and where there's room for growth, and then you can start to develop the heart, you can then start to act in socially also. So it doesn't have to be a personal, an organizational, but also a social impact. And I think more on the whole planet as such. So you do then that it makes that sustainable, because that's, I think, is the next step. So those,
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think, you know, going to your point where you said about the masculine and feminine, I would like to share, you know, sadly, I also, what I've noticed in organizations is
you're gonna say,
females who go up the leadership ladder feel like they have to prostrate and show the same behaviors as males for them to be accepted to be in executive positions as well. And they fall into the trap of being like that. And they then exhibit those behaviors exactly as the males because they lose and forget who they are. But what I would like to say is, I haven't been treated like that by the men. Sadly, I have by a female leader. But I think if I look back at that behavior, it's also about leadership, is also about courage.
absolutely.
Personal transformation is all about courage. And we just, you know, we want to fit into the mold, whether it's in an organization, whether it's in our everyday lives. So we want to fit into that mold because, really going back to another point you raised, that's what we're taught at in school. Just think, the moment we go into school, it's KPI driven. You know, we go into exams, we go into, well, this person did it like this. So I love one of the four agreements that we've talked about before. I love the word when he says we become domesticated. We become domesticated and we lose our power. So our light diminishes within us and it's lost again. So I think, you know, we have to become those lighthouses, but to become a lighthouse for people, we have to find time and space for ourselves. Because if we do that, other people, we give the freedom for other people to do that as well. If we run around everywhere like crazy leaders and tell everybody, oh, I'm so busy, I was sending an email at this time. We physically send the email. Don't get me wrong, I've had to do it myself, so I know, and quickly I have to go, that's not good behavior, because that tells everybody else that's what I expect of them as well. So what I know over the years, where I've learned, Claudia, is how do I actually talk more about who I am as a person, even if it's like small personal things, because that's what connects us as humans more than anything else. The value of connecting as humans and showing our vulnerability of saying, you know what, I've had a bad day as well. Or, oh my gosh, I had a really mad school run this morning and my child was just crying and I was just so frustrated. Just talking on a human perspective at work as well breaks down the barriers, because then our people know we're real and we're able to relate to our people more by taking our masks down as well. And that I think helps build the trust between all of us. And let's face it, Claudia, none of us are leaders of people from a hierarchy of an organization, I'm talking about, without having people reporting to us. Because if we look at all of the scaling systems that different HRs use in companies, one of the criteria for you to be a leader or a manager is how many people report to you. I firmly believe that everybody is a leader. Everybody has the ability to be a leader, because if we're compassionate and speak kindly to someone, and that's why over the years, I've done lots of multiplier training, not because I want people to be like me, but I want to just spark the light in people who say, oh, I like a little bit of what Ratna does, but I want to spark it in their own way, because there's going to be so many attributes that they have that I don't have. So I spark their light, they influence other people. But honestly, Claudia, the people I've been able to try to shine my light on, I've massively learned and grown because of how their lights have shone. And I go, wow, I look at that. That's amazing. So I always think when the light shines outwards, the more you shine outwards, it always shines back to help you clear the mirror of your heart to find a potential transformation that you would never have thought about before. Yeah.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Beautiful.
And I think I get the feeling in organizations now that that's something that is slowly being recognized, because like our own personal transformation, organizational transformation, if we keep looking on the outside and we don't get the answers that we need, there's nowhere else to go except inside.
This is so beautiful. And that's exactly what you said, where you need the courage, because not everyone has the courage.
Yes.
They're so focused. And I love this little test I read somewhere. They put in a glass bottle, they put, say, 50 flies and they put in 50 bees.
Yeah.
They left the bottle open. I don't know if you know this one.
No, I don't.
So, and they had the bees, bees are really hardworking. They're like focused and what they do, they're beautiful like that. And the flies are beautiful in their own way as well. But what happened? The bees really wanted to find the exit, of course. The bottle was open, but they were so focused. They saw the light that was pointing to one direction, and they just kept flying to that light. But
yes.
The flies, they were like all over the boat. They didn't know that the light was there and that's what you should fly around or whatever. They just took a chance and they flew all over like flies do. And by doing that, they were able to fly out of the bottle.
Wow.
And the flies were all out. All the bees were still in.
Yeah.
It's like this, when you stay so focused and
yes.
you think you know it all as a leader, and this is how I've done it, and this is how like you also said, the women then come into those positions, that's how they've done it, and that's how I will do it. And you don't try something else, if you don't come out of that stance knowing that maybe I could learn something here, like you said, you want to transform yourself, maybe I can learn something myself before I'm teaching something.
Yeah.
Like being that open, not knowing stance, and just asking questions. What do you need? What can be better? What can we do? What is the first step that you could contribute to make this happen? If we start to talk like that, people
Yeah.
feel much more energized, they feel much more vitality, much more balance, and then much more likely to open up, like you say, to become feel safe enough to be vulnerable and to go a little bit further out of the way. I can speak out of experience when I was into nursing, when there was one in between, and I worked in a community hospital, and I did night duties because my husband at the time was often away. So then I could work at night and be there for the children, you know, like that kind of thing. And then sometimes in the holidays, there were, or when someone else was sick, then they asked if I could do a day duty. But one of my children got ill. I was like, please, but all the nurses were female. It was a small hospital. And they said, why don't you just bring the child to work? And we all look after. So we had like a lovely nursing area where we could have our cup of teas and whatever, and a little sofa. And my daughter was put on the sofa, and she had all the juices and the fruits and all the things she needed. And all the girls who would come in and say, "How are you doing? Do you need anything? Do you want a puzzle, a jigsaw puzzle, or a little book?" And then when they would have their coffee break, they would read a little story to her. And I thought, this is how it used to be in the old.
Yes.
You didn't have to do this all alone. As a team, you would look after the whole community.
Yeah.
And what if we bring that kind of element back in organizations? You know,
Yeah.
what would that do to all these people who try to manage their private life with their working life?
Yeah.
And,
I love that word you just used, community. I was thinking about, I've been thinking about this quite a bit. And even, when I've run safety culture programs, because that's my area as well, we say, what makes a culture? And it's how we do things around here. But how we do things around here is all about the community. An organization is a community of people coming together, striving to make their workplace better, to make profit for the company, to grow each other. But community means creating safe spaces for people to talk about their why. And I think that's another point, Claudia, people not feeling people no not judging other people because of the way they think.
okay.
Oh my gosh, that's just one topic we can talk about on its own. It's such a big topic about not taking turns to speak because you just want to get on with a meeting, but talk really genuinely going, I wonder why that person thinks like that. Tell me more. Yes, time is of the essence as well, but that investment is so valuable to potential innovation that can happen in a company that is not the genie bottle hasn't even been truly released in organizations, I think, because people are stifled that if I dare to speak up, then people, and we do this in our private lives and it's because of things that have happened to us, our environments, but I'll do an action, but I want someone to love what I do or what I say. But maybe we need to build that environment. We go, just say it, have the courage to say it. You may not get the recognition and we may not do something straight away. But I think we've spoken about this before. It's about planting the seed and having no expectations.
Yeah, and then be like that fly. Just say it. Just do it. And
That's right.
if you keep going to the light, and you can't get.
Yes.
If you want to have something different happening, and if you want to find an exit to perhaps more joy at your work or for the organization at large, do so.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. And the community, like you explained with your daughter as well, you, we're not, one of my closest friends always says to me, Ratna, we're not here to do life alone. Because why on earth would we have all these humans walking around on the planet if we were meant to do life on our own? And that's not just as human beings, it's all the animals and creatures that, if we look at different people's you know, wanting to look after animals, wanting to look after the trees, the plants, the all kinds of species, the waterways, everything. We're here on this planet for a purpose, to do life together.
Well, I think that is a great topic to speak about next time, perhaps, you know, about
Yes.
leadership. What does that mean, and how we see it, that, especially in the younger leaders, they won't settle for anything less. It will need to have a purpose, some
Yes.
contribution to society.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, I mean, talking about, you know, the younger generation as well. I mean, I have the privilege of working with some really amazing younger generation at the moment, and they don't want to work for settle for second best. And I had an interesting conversation with my nephew, who's only in his early 20s, and we were talking about climate change. And he was coming from the perspective of, well, no one's ever done anything, and this is why we have this right now. And I'm like, no, actually, I've been in this space for 25 years, and we have done something, but because of the way everyone's always only done something about it if regulation was enforced. But even when regulation's enforced, no one's been made accountable. So that's where we are. And he went, oh, I didn't think of it like that, because of the age that I'm at. I only see this boundary of what I see right now and what I know. So we need, and I think you've done a lot of work on this, Claudia, about the wisdom of the wisdom of age and transferring. It's not always been bad. There are people who have always been doing something about this, and we have to marry the two together before it becomes a bigger conflict as well, because there's things there that we can learn from each other. And yes, the younger generation want to do, they want to fix what's been broken. But I think it's also good that we say everything hasn't always been broken, because if it had been broken, Claudia, we'd be in a lot worse position than we actually are right now as well. And it would have declined a lot quicker. So, and I think that's all over the world, you know, organizations would be in a lot worse positions if they didn't have all those amazing people who do not have leadership roles, but have amazing leadership skills on the shop floor. Because if those people weren't around, things would not be sustaining themselves as they are. And they're the unsung heroes, to be quite honest.
Well, this is true. This is what we often say with our training, you know, when we do leaders in the at the head of the top of the tree, and we say, so what would happen today if something would happen to you and you couldn't come back? Do you think the whole company would shut down? Or no, it would still continue. So this is what we remember.
Yeah. I think leaders also, you know, look at COVID, you know, during COVID, leaders were expected, to be fair, to come up with a solution to keep business as possible, usual. But you know what? Each one of those leaders was going through everything that the employees who they looked after were going through. And what I saw was so many leaders letting down their masks and talking vulnerably, because they had to have their child in front of them. They had to look after their dog. They had to just go, oh my gosh, this is so frustrating. I can't get teams to work. But so many still were keeping their mask there. So we also need to create safe spaces to help leaders look inside of themselves to be able to be the best version of themselves, not just in the organization, but their families. Because whatever happens in the organization, whether you're a leader or not a leader, whatever happens in that environment is magnified at home, and we take it home. There's no doubt about it. And that's, you know, that's not looking after human beings. I think the need in organizations, it's slowly becoming more of a need that it's not a microorganism of your organization. We're actually part of the whole environment as a macroorganism. So what I think that's the transformation that organizations are going on, is how do we fit with the macro rather than the micro? Because like you said, the Industrial Revolution has just been micro here, micro here, micro here. We have lots of micros, and you can feel this, like, I feel there's a tension bursting in a lot of organizations to know to venture in. How do we go to the macro? But there are so many people in the organization who do amazing work outside of work with, whatever they do in the community, however they serve a church, however they serve a charity. How about we bring all that innovation for the answers that are already in an organization? And I don't know, I would dare to say, do we even need the hierarchical structures that we have, Claudia? I think that's the next stage where the surface has massively been scratched, I think. And that's one of the reasons I thought about, I've done this for a long time. How can I be of service to other organizations to help really break down the wallpaper that's been put up everywhere as well?
And I think that is so relevant, like you're saying, because you see it popping up everywhere, and people, they talk about work-life balance, and I'm thinking, no.
No.
It includes work.
Yeah.
It includes not work, and life should be balanced, not work-life. Life should be balanced, and I think that is something we need to start having discussions around as well, and that, not being focused anymore on the short-term successes and short-term gains, but on long-term benefits, and then benefits not just for the organization, but for the people who work in it.
Yeah. I just want to share something with you, just because of some of the things I do. And I came across this little talk on Instagram. I won't share the source and everything. We can talk about that later. But, in companies, what's the one thing that we do to be able to get product out of the door, whatever that widget is, to make, when we're trying to get people to better themselves, we have KPIs because we want people to focus somewhere. And I heard this beautiful thing, and I wrote it down because I think it's so important for personal and organizational transformation. Focus. We want everybody to focus. We go in a meeting, please focus. Mm-hmm. So here it is. F, fun of life. We're not here to be miserable. We actually make everything miserable ourselves as well, because we've taken the fun out of life. And that work-life balance, we are allowed to make it fun in work because that's part of our life, the work. O is organize yourself. And organizing yourself means organizing our mind. And we need to slow everyone down to take even 5 minutes to meditate, whether that's walking, whether that's cooking, getting lots of hugs of your dogs, or doing silent meditation like you and I love doing as well. C stands for character. Have the courage to stand for your character, but that needs some investment as well. But also going back to when you asked me earlier, I've always tried to stand up for the character that I was brought up with and I explored. It's not been easy because people don't always like when you stand up for your character. And it's not because they don't like you standing up for your character. It's because they see something bigger of you having the courage to stand up for your character. U is for yourself. So what are we going to achieve inside of us? Because when we focus on ourselves, then we can be more of the next part, service to others. So S is for service. So what are we going to do in our communities and for other people? And community doesn't just mean community outside of work. It's community in the organization we work with, because we spend so much time there. And how many times do we say, my work is like family. I have two families, one at work, one here. Are we doing enough? But I think the biggest part in there is the fun for life. I've had to learn that as well, going through that, but I've always tried to create a space for fun for other people. I had to learn, Claudia, to create fun for me. That was a really big part of my transformation. And having the courage to stand up for your character as well. And we need to create that space to have that courage, because if we are able to do that in an organization, oh my gosh, we can actually influence people to do that more outside, which means the behaviors and traits of people change to how, when they have younger children around them, to have that courage as well. And I think there's pockets of courage everywhere. I just feel right now the time is, there's something going on in the world where courage is coming together. And courage means, for me, looking at inside. When we quieten our mind, then we actually start listening to the vibration of our heart space.
Well, this is what I would like to add with that, from what I think they're all so beautiful. Courageous compassion.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes.
That compassion that with the selfless service and all that you're saying, the you, that's all beautiful. I love that too. And I would like to add the ingredient, compassion. We have compassion towards ourselves that, maybe we weren't able to do it in the beginning, but now when we're more becoming awake,
yeah.
I need the compassion, the gentleness for myself, and therefore then for others. What can I do to help others? It becomes this. Our conscious world agents came to me once in a meditation, also stood CWA for passion with action. It's that.
Oh, beautiful. I love that.
Coming from your heart, that awakening of the heart. And I love that when you say that, opening the heart and taking that courage to go to the heart. And that can be quite scary for people as well.
Yes.
And therefore, that's what I said, and I actually wrote a post on LinkedIn about this. That you don't have to do that alone. Like you said, we're not meant to walk this.
No,
and
not at all.
I've supported so many people with that in life, that to realize that the time of the lone wolf is over. Also in leadership.
Yes.
It has such a much more impact.
Yes.
People have a natural sense of belonging. They need to belong somewhere. Like you said, like you have a family at work, you have family at home, you have friends. We want to create circles within circles.
Perfect. Yes. Beautifully said.
Beautifully said. Ripples, if you throw a stone where you are now, the other side of the ocean, and throw it here in the North Sea today, it will meet.
It will meet, and the ripple effect is always there as well.
What a great way of ending this conversation right now.
Yes, definitely. I'm sure we can delve into each one of these to, you and I are here to be service to people with our, I think, with our knowledge. And what are we going to do with that knowledge? And I think we've met so many people who inspire all of us, both of us as well.
But what I love with us is always the fun part.
Yes, it has to be about the fun, because if we don't release the fun, oh my gosh, there's so much trapped. And that's what we want to release from people.
Childlike, not childish, but childlike. Can you be
childlike? Yeah.
Of why we are here in the world.
And it's all about, growing. We have to be in action, and we can just stand still in one place, and if we stand still, we'll just grow old. If we don't stand still, we actually grow up. And I use the analogy again, we grow up, because if you look at a tree as well, as we grow up, the roots get deeper. And when the roots get deeper, we're able to stand in our character more as well. So we don't want to grow old. That's going to happen anyway. But wouldn't it be more beautiful if we can help people grow up through the transformation of life? And an organization, someone needs to go to organizations and say, are we, we can change the script of ourselves and our organizations?
That could be the question. When we both go into organizations, that do you want to grow old or do you want to grow up?
Yes.
Then hire us.
Yeah.
I love it.
Thank you so much.
Such a delight as usual. I love you.
Oh, for me too.
Mwah, mwah, mwah.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And yeah, let's be of service to people, and we can delve into these a little bit more. Love to hear what other people have to say about these topics as well.
Wonderful. Well, thank you. I'm going to end the recording now. And
Yes.
thank you so much. And I look forward to our next time together. Explore
Yes.
the world.
Thank you, Claudia.